Ça y est, c'est parti. Accueillons en studio Priscilla Sadien et David Boudna. Bonjour.
Bonjour Yannick, bonjour à tous. Merci. Vous pouvez rejoindre nous pour cette rentrée parlementaire. Comme chaque mardi, nous poursuivons la séance de la PNQ en live. Et ce matin, mon coéquipier, c'est David Boudna qui est avec nous. Bonjour David, bienvenue.
Bonjour Priscilla, bonjour à tous.
Alors, cette rentrée parlementaire, David, peut faire dans un contexte particulier avec départ annoncé de Paul Béranger comme député Prime Minister qui, selon nous l'information, n'a pas pu soumettre ce démission aujourd'hui. Les préfets attendent ce comité central. Leader MMM fin aussi annoncé hier qu'il n'a pas pour présent dans le Parlement aujourd'hui. Il fin aussi dire qu'il y a un député mauve qui souhaitait présent pour capable faire lire, mais il précisé qu'il s'accène, bizarre assume ses responsabilités. La question ce matin, David, c'est combien de députés et ministres MMM pour présent, même si nous connaissons qui certains comme Adjay Ganes a fin dire ouvertement qu'il est pour présent et qui certains ministres ont une question à répondre.
Oui, alors justement, après la PNQ, il y a une question donc qui va député peut poser. En effet, selon le calendrier parlementaire de ce mardi, c'est un élu du MMM, Rametoria, qui pour démarrer la série de bonnes questions au Premier ministre juste après la PNQ. Également à l'agenda, 5 ministres du MMM pour appeler à répondre à bonnes questions parlementaires, notamment ministre des services financiers, ministre des sports, de l'environnement, de l'égalité des genres et des infrastructures nationales. Nous vous reviendrons en détail, la talère précédemment, mais d'abord nous guettons la PNQ.
Oui, alors la private notice question du leader de l'opposition, axée la guerre au Moyen-Orient, Jolie Jongar, qui peut questionner Premier ministre Navin Ramgoolam. Léolé connaît si le gouvernement fin faire une évaluation de l'impact de ce conflit-là, l'économie mauricienne, notamment secteur l'énergie, sécurité alimentaire et stabilité sociale. Il peut aussi demander si fin met un comité début au niveau bureau au Premier ministre pour suivre l'évolution de la situation, assure la coordination interministérielle et déclenche une mesure d'urgence, contingency measures, David.
Oui, Priscilla, donc pas plus tard que jeudi dernier de ce message à la nation, dans le cadre de fête nationale, Premier ministre de Ramgoolam, qui dit qu'avec la guerre Moyen-Orient, pour une bonne répercussion, le Maurice inévitable, l'inflation et le prix pour augmenter, et qui ça, en dehors nous contrôle. Il s'est aussi confirmé qu'il y a un accord avec un accord important, un point important, un accord avec Indian Oil, pour approvisionnement nos pays en produits pétroliers pour assurer donc l'approvisionnement qui nous pas manque l'essence, diesel, tout ça là, comme il y a quelques jours de cela, une dizaine de jours, un panic buying. Donc pour éviter ce bon problème-là, et selon de bonnes informations, il y a un contrat de 3 à 5 ans qui est envisagé avec Salaco, avec Indian Oil Corporation, et qui est pour prendre effet à expiration de l'accord avec OQ Trading. Nouvelle salle au gaz ménager, Priscilla.
Oui, alors initialement prévu pour jeudi dernier, la cargaison attendue ce mardi. Radio Plus vendredi dernier, ministre Michael Sikuen qui rassuré que le stock actuel est suffisant et que aussi un navire affrété par la STC chargé d'huile lourde depuis Singapour attendu d'ici 2 semaines. Le CEB qui peut explorer une nouvelle option pour son approvisionnement et a une expression of interest qui finit de lancer pour identifier un fournisseur. Et concernant la sécurité alimentaire, David. Ministre Orvin Boulel t'y rassuré qu'il n'y a aucun problème au plan alimentaire. Il fin président un comité d'urgence la sécurité alimentaire le 3 mars pour faire le point la situation internationale marquée par une tension donc au Moyen-Orient. Et il dit que l'Agricultural Marketing Board dispose d'un stock suffisant jusqu'au mois de mai et qu'un prochain approvisionnement déjà en route. Alors, en attendant donc qu'il nous poursuivre cette PNQ de Joe Lejongar qui est adressée au Premier ministre, peut-être nous capables de rêver, David, un dossier qui pour retenir l'attention lors de la PMQT, donc l'impact économique du retard dans la ratification du traité sur les Chagos, la lutte contre la drogue ainsi que la situation économique du pays. Et Wikipédia là, c'est le député du MMM, Ram Etwaria, qui ouvert la séance de bonnes questions adressées au Premier ministre.
Alors oui, Priscilla, pour sa séance-là, il y a 75 questions, là dans un tiers, 25 questions adressées au Premier ministre d'un laps de temps de 30 minutes que la speaker donc pouvait y aller là. Donc de sa 30 minutes-là, bonne question qui est prévue, bonne première question qui est prévue. D'abord, donc, Ramétoria, il peut interpeller le Premier ministre, l'impact économique dans ratification du traité Chagos. Il peut évoquer justement sa somme de 10 milliards de roupies qui est prévue dans le budget, dans le cadre Chagos Deal et qui peut apparaître pour essayer de rentrer à temps, mais qui toujours pas décaissé. Ensuite, le député travailliste, Robna Doriaou, il peut intéresser à l'État, négociation entre Maurice et le Royaume-Uni pour ça traité-là, ainsi que sur une implication financière, sur une implication légale et sécuritaire. Là. Ensuite, un peu plus tard, Koucha Lubin pour demander qui position Maurice face à une revendication Maldives qui lui aussi réclame souveraineté l'eau Chagos, donc pour qu'on ait qui position Maurice Lola nous connaît qui quelque temps de cela dans le Conseil des ministres tient la décision pour couper ban relations diplomatiques. Au thème à l'agenda, conflit Moyen-Orient et sur une conséquences économiques pour Maurice, Ramétoya et Roshan Juman souhaitent connaître qui une mesure, gouvernement, Raviraj Bichouk, peut intéresser une éventuelle conséquence, une dégradation de notre souveraine de Maurice au rang de junk status par Moody's, et par ailleurs, Farah Demiel, peut demander un détail sur un cas blanchiment d'argent lié à une affaire de drogue qui est recensée depuis novembre 2024, c'est ce qu'a dit. Et de ce côté, WIP, l'opposition, Adrien Duval, lui pour questionner le Premier ministre pour connaître quand la police peut équiper avec bantage et ban body worn caméra, l'autre même, le temps je peux agir.
Oui, alors la séance parlementaire du jour qui est capable de suivre également nos pages Facebook défimedia.info. Alors, nous rappelle aussi, David, qu'il y a 2 projets de loi qui à l'ordre du jour. L'Optical Council Amendment Bill qui pour présenter en première lecture. Ensuite, il y a un débat. Law Reform Commission Bill.
Alors oui, Optical Council Amendment Bill pour introduire au Parlement donc en première lecture avec débat et plus tard, mais surtout là débat le Law Reform Commission Bill. Law Reform Commission Bill, li peut venir pour venir annuler ancien la loi, Law Reform Commission Act et ça nouveau la loi là, donc li pour plus large avec plus large pouvoir pour simplifier, moderniser et consolide tout ban la loi mauricienne et bien sûr ça les différents avec éventuellement Constitutional Reform Bill, ça une autre affaire. Donc là aujourd'hui débat peut commencer le Reform Commission Bill après 4 heures, après toute la séance de questions parlementaires et ban déclaration, ban statement aussi, Siena, pas ban ministre.
Alors, 11 heures passées de 30 minutes, nous vous prenons tout de suite la direction de l'Assemblée nationale pour suivre cette PNQ de Jolie Longar adressée au Premier ministre, l'impact économique, l'impact de la guerre au Moyen-Orient, l'eau Maurice. Nous pouvons suivre tout de suite cette PNQ.
Announcements.
Yes, Honorable Prime Minister.
Yes,
Obituaries.
Yes, Madam Speaker, it is with deep sadness that we have learnt of the demise of Mr. Saryamuti Sanasi, also known as Muti Sanasi, former Member of Parliament who passed away on the 22nd of January 2026 at the age of 81. Mr. Sanasi was born in 1944 in Portree. He was the son of Mr. Kisnasamy Sanasi, a loyal member of the Labour Party and a close ally of Sir Suivez Gulam, and he played a key role in the independence movement, and he was also a member of the National Assembly. Mr. Muti Sanasi completed his secondary education at St. Andrews School. He pursued his tertiary studies at Lancaster University in the United Kingdom, where he earned a master's degree in international marketing. He had a distinguished professional career as Trade Secretary at the Ministry of Commerce, making significant contributions to Mauritius' international marketing and trade policy. He played a crucial role in the development of the export processing zone and in the negotiation of key textile agreements under the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade and the Lomé Convention with the European Union. Mr. Muti Sanasi was a firm believer in regional integration and supported Mauritius' engagement with the Organization of African Unity, now the African Union. He stood as a candidate at the 1991 election for the Legislative Assembly under the banner of the Alliance Parti Travailliste PMSD for the constituency number 8, but he was not elected. He contested the 1995 National Assembly elections under the banner of the Alliance Parti Travailliste MMM for constituency number 13 and was returned as the second member. In January 1996, Mr. Muti Sanasi was appointed Deputy Chairman of Committees, a position he held until July 1997, when he was appointed Minister of Industry and Commerce. In September 1999, he was appointed Minister of Housing and Lands, a portfolio he held until August 2000. In 2007, he was elevated to the rank of Grand Officer of the Order of the Star and Key of the Indian Ocean, in recognition of his distinguished services to the trade sector. Madam Speaker, Mr. Muti Sanasi belonged to a generation that bridged Mauritius' entrepreneurial community and its political institutions in the decades following independence. He leaves behind a legacy of service both to the economic and public life in Mauritius. With these words, Madam Speaker, may I request you to kindly direct the clerk to convey the profound condolences of the Assembly to the bereaved family, particularly to his children. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Leader of the Opposition, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Opposition, I fully associate myself to the tribute paid by Dr. the Honourable Prime Minister to late Mr. Satyamurti Sanasi. Madam Speaker, may I kindly request you to direct the Clerk of the National Assembly to convey our deep condolences to the bereaved family.
Thank you.
Speaker, thank you.
Thank you. Honourable members, I associate myself with a tribute paid to the memory of the late Mr. Sanasi Satyamurti, former Member of Parliament, by Dr. the Honourable Prime Minister, by the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, and I direct the clerk to convey the deep condolences of the Assembly to the bereaved family. Yes, Prime Minister.
Speaker, it is with deep sadness that we have learnt of the demise of Mr. Takodat Padarat, former Member of Parliament who passed away on the 24th of February of this year at the age of 81. Mr. Padarat was born on the 3rd of July 1949 in Moyen-Orient. He had his primary schooling at the Edis Cavell Government School and his secondary education at the Port Louis High School. He then pursued his tertiary studies at Punjab University in Chandigarh, where he earned a bachelor's degree in English language, economics, and political science. Mr. Padarat had a distinguished professional career, both in the public and private sector, holding numerous positions. He first stood as a candidate in the 1982 general elections for the Legislative Assembly under the banner of the MMM-PSM for constituency number 2 and was returned as second member. In June 1982, he was appointed member of the Public Accounts Committee. He contested the 1983 general election under the banner of the MSM Parti Travailliste PMSD for constituency number 2, but he was not returned. Mr. Paderat had a very active and rich social life, assisting in the organization of socio-religious activities. With these words, Madam Speaker, may I request you to kindly direct the clerk to convey to the profound condolences of the Assembly to the bereaved family, particularly his wife and children. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Leader of the Opposition, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Opposition, I once again associate myself to the tribute paid by Dr. the Honorable Prime Minister to late Mr. Takodat Padarat. Madam Speaker, may I kindly request you to direct the clerk of the National Assembly to convey our deep condolences to the bereaved family. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Leader of the Opposition, honourable members, once again, I associate myself with the tribute paid to the memory of late Mr. Padarat Takodat, former Member of Parliament, by the Honourable Prime Minister and the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, and I direct the clerk to convey the deep condolences of the Assembly to the bereaved family. Please, thank you.
Papers have been laid. Questions?
Yes, Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I've given notice of the following private notice question, which is addressed to Dr. the Honourable Prime Minister, Minister of Defence, Home Affairs and External Communications, Minister of Finance, Minister for Rodrigues and Outer Islands. Whether in regard to the Middle East conflict, he will state whether government has made any assessment of the impact thereof on the Mauritian economy, including on energy, food security and social stability, indicating if a committee has been set up at the level of his office to monitor the evolving situation, coordinate interministerial responses, and trigger contingency measures, and if so, indicate the composition thereof. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Prime Minister.
Yes, Madam Speaker, in view of the importance of this subject, I seek the indulgence, your indulgence, Madam Speaker, and that of the House, for what would necessarily be a lengthy reply.
Please.
Madam Speaker, the recent escalation of tensions and hostilities in the Middle East has raised serious concerns regarding the regional peace and stability. These developments have resulted in the tragic loss of lives, damage to infrastructure, and disruptions to civil aviation air traffic in the region, affecting travelers and residents, including Mauritian nationals. Madam Speaker, let me state that as soon as the war broke out in the Middle East, I have been personally monitoring the situation very closely. As I've just stated, it was obvious right from day one that this war would create a global turmoil that would have devastating economic repercussions, particularly for highly vulnerable countries like Mauritius. I have been in constant contact not only with the ministers concerned in Mauritius, but also with important foreign dignitaries to try to see ways and means to mitigate the economic and social impact of this war on our country. All the ministries concerned have put in place urgent contingency plans to address immediate concerns. Furthermore, they have prepared a medium and long-term strategy to enable the country to cope with further repercussions. Our immediate concern was the security and safety of our citizens stranded in the war zone. We needed to act promptly, and we did. I have personally contacted Sheikh Majid Al Mulna, responsible for Emirates Airlines, requesting him if it was possible to put flights for the repatriation of our citizens. He indicated to me that it was going to be difficult because they had stopped all the flights, but because of my request and my personal friendship with him, he agreed that he will try his best, and he did put airlines at our disposal. I've also requested Air Mauritius to facilitate the repatriation of our fellow citizens stranded in different countries in the region. Once the war has started, it has caused major traffic disruptions with more than 20,000 flights which were cancelled just from Dubai. In this context, government has been closely monitoring the situation and has taken the necessary diplomatic and consular measures to ensure the security of Mauritian citizens, while also reiterating our support for dialogue, de-escalation, and a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Madam Speaker, since the outbreak of nationwide protest in December 2025 in the Islamic Republic of Iran, our ambassador in Saudi Arabia, His Excellency Riyad Halimat, has been very proactive to ensure the safe repatriation of our citizens. As I said, I personally spoke to the person responsible for Emirates Airline for the price that he could put for the repatriation of our citizens. And on 19th of January 2026, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a communique establishing a hotline for Mauritian nationals in distress and reaffirming government's commitment to assist those affected. Mauritian nationals were also strongly advised to avoid all non-essential travel to Iran. Following the escalation of hostilities across the broader Middle East, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs immediately established contact with Mauritius citizens across the Gulf region through the coordination of our diplomatic missions in Riyadh and Islamabad, as well as the Mauritius Consulate in Dubai. On the 28th of February 2026, an alert notice was issued providing the emergency contact details of these missions and the crisis cell set up at the level of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The notice also advised Mauritian nationals to defer any travel to Iran and to countries in the region. On the 9th of March 2026, a further alert notice was issued in view of the prevailing security situation in the Middle East, again advising Mauritian nationals to avoid traveling to the countries of the region. The alert notice further advised Mauritian nationals that should they find themselves in distress, they may contact our embassy in Riyadh or our consulate in Dubai for assistance, and the personal contact numbers of our diplomatic staff, including that of the ambassador in Riyadh and the consulate in Dubai, were shared for this purpose. A total of 228 Mauritian nationals contacted the Ministry of Foreign Affairs via the hotline that was established to provide assistance to all those stranded in the Middle East region. Madam Speaker, with regard to the repatriation of Mauritian nationals, around 121 Mauritians who were in Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia established contact with our mission in Riyadh with a view to returning to Mauritius. According to the mission, most of them have been departing via commercial flights. Through consultations and cooperation with Emirates and Saudi Airlines, rapid arrangements were made to facilitate the travel. As the airspace of Saudi Arabia remained open, 20 Mauritian nationals, mainly pilgrims, departed Jeddah from Mauritius on the 2nd of March of this year. In addition, 39 Mauritian nationals returned safely to Mauritius on the 3rd of March 2026 via Nairobi. Upon my request, Emirates scheduled 3 flights on the Dubai-Mauritius route between the 5th and the 7th of March 2026. Of the 72 Mauritian nationals registered in Dubai, approximately 80% departed on these flights by the 7th of March 2026. Arrangements were further made for one Mauritian national who was in Iran to travel to Mauritius via Turkey. The assistance of the Indian authorities was also obtained to evacuate one Mauritian who was in Israel via Jordan. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is fully engaged in monitoring the situation and continues to utilize all diplomatic and logistical channels to facilitate the safe return of any remaining Mauritian citizen. Madam Speaker, reaffirming its diplomatic stance, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a press statement on the 3rd of March 2026 calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities and for the resumption of dialogue among the parties concerned. The press statement also took note of the concerns expressed by the United Nations, the African Union, the Arab League, and the Gulf Cooperation Council, which have similarly called for an immediate cessation of hostilities and the resumption of dialogue in order to restore peace and stability in the region. As a small, open, and net energy and food importing economy, Mauritius is exposed to the negative impact of the conflict, primarily through one, an increase in our fuel and food import bill, which would increase the cost of imports and place upward pressure on inflation and the cost of living. Second, higher freight and insurance costs on our imports, increasing the cost of goods and adding further to domestic price pressures. And third, possible effects on foreign direct investment and the tourism sector, particularly if global uncertainty weighs on investor sentiment and international travel demand. Madam Speaker, the Macroeconomic Coordination Committee, which comprises representatives of the Prime Minister's Office, the Ministry of Finance, the Bank of Mauritius, Statistics Mauritius, and the Economic Development Board, has worked out different scenarios of the impact of the conflict on the economy. Prior to the outbreak of the conflict, it was estimated that the GDP growth for 2026 would be around 3.4%. It is now expected that if the conflict is resolved within a short period, the GDP growth rate could be lower at around 3.2%. However, under the scenario of a prolonged conflict, the GDP growth rate could be further reduced to below 3%. One of the main sectors that will be directly affected by this conflict is the tourism sector. The number of tourist arrivals, which was projected to be around 1,450,000 in 2026, will in all likelihood be lower and will depend on the severity and the duration of the conflict. The transport, logistics, and other trade-related activities are also expected to be affected by the conflict. Another important economic parameter that is expected to be affected is the inflation rate. Prices were initially expected to increase by around 4% on average in 2026. It is now estimated that the inflation rate could go up to 6%, depending on the trend in global prices of oil and other commodities. As regards the impact on the balance of payments, it is estimated that the current account deficit as a ratio of GDP could increase from the baseline scenario of 4.8% to around 6% in 2026, again, depending on the evolution of oil prices and the impact on the tourism sector. Concerning public finances, it is expected that government revenues would be lower in view of the expected subdued growth in consumption expenditure and lower tourist arrivals. On top of that, we will have to take into account the expected shortfall in revenue of 10 billion rupees due to the delay in the ratification of the Chagos Treaty. Overall, it is expected that the budget deficit would be higher by up to 2% of GDP. Against this backdrop, and in order to ensure a coordinated and proactive response, the Ministry of Finance has intensified its engagement with the private sector. A high-level committee, chaired by the Financial Secretary, and bringing together Business Mauritius and key public bodies, has been set up to take stock of the latest developments, assess the likely implications of the conflict on our economy, and come up with appropriate policy measures. Working sessions are being held on a regular basis between the Ministry of Finance, Business Mauritius, and the Economic Development Board, particularly on programs to support SMEs and the most vulnerable, on improving energy and supply chain resilience, on food security, on the tourism sector, as well as on how to optimize on the economic opportunities that the conflict may offer. Madam Speaker, the high-level committee is considering short-term actions, medium-term measures, and the longer-term strategies. It will focus not only on immediate responses, but also on measures designed to enhance the resilience of our economy and society in the face of external shocks. We are taking some measures to mitigate the impact of the conflict on our economy. Already we have taken some measures. For example, Air Mauritius will now operate one supplementary non-stop flight to Paris in March of this year, and 3 more in April 2026. These supplementary services will increase capacity by more than 2,300 seats. Furthermore, the Bank of Mauritius is intervening on the local forex market in order to ease the pressure on the Mauritian rupee. The high-level committee will also be having another meeting today itself to take stock of the developments and reconsider remedial measures. As part of our strategy to mitigate the impact of the conflict and prevent major disruptions in the economy, we're ensuring that we have adequate supply of petroleum products as well as essential food commodities at affordable prices. Since the outbreak of hostilities, Brent crude oil prices have risen, as we all know, markedly, climbing from a low of around $60 per barrel at the start of this year to around $100 per barrel currently. It went even up to $115 at one point. Despite the upward pressure in international petroleum prices, government has been able to maintain stable retail prices locally. Madam Speaker, I wish to reassure the House and the population at large that we are taking every step to ensure adequate supply of petroleum products. In this regard, I'm informed by the State Trading Corporation that as of the 16th of March 2026, the stock position in the country was broadly as follows. For Mogas, that is l'essence, stocks amount of approximately 8,503 metric tons, representing 13 days of sales approximately, with stocks expected to last until around 25th of March 2026, based on the new trend of sales registered lately. For gas oil, diesel, stocks amount to approximately 12,327 metric tons, representing approximately 23 days of supply, with stocks expected to last around the 2nd of April of this year. For Jet A1, stocks approximately of 16,062 metric tons, which represents approximately 21 days of supply, and it's expected to last until the 4th of April of this year. As for marine gas oil, stocks amount to approximately 6,018 metric tons, representing approximately 17 days supply, and it is expected to last until the 1st of April of this year. I'm further informed, Madam Speaker, by the STC that the next consignment of petroleum products is expected to arrive in Port Louis around the 18th of March 2026, carrying 11,300 metric tons of Mogas, 13,690 metric tons of gas oil, 11,010 metric tons of jet AI, and 3,000 metric tons of marine gas oil. A subsequent consignment is planned between the 2nd and the 4th of April of 2026, comprising approximately 13,000 metric tons of Mogas, 12,200 tons of gas oil, 12,700 metric tons of Jet A1, and 2,000 metric tons of marine gas oil. Madam Speaker, with regard to the liquefied petroleum products, that is cooking gas, the country currently holds approximately 6,772 metric tons, representing around 23 days of supply based on an average daily consumption of around 280 metric tons. According to the STC, a vessel is expected to arrive around, in fact, the 17th of March to discharge approximately, that is today, to discharge approximately 7,000 metric tons of LPG mix. Another vessel is expected to arrive around the 30th of March with approximately 3,000 metric tons. A further shipment of around 9,000 metric tons is scheduled for mid-April 2026, followed by another shipment planned for late May 2026. Madam Speaker, the STC has also carried out an assessment of the potential supply disruptions that could arise from the geopolitical situation in the Middle East, or from disruption to shipping routes. In this regard, the current supplier, OQ Trading Limited, which operates a refinery at Sohar in Oman, has confirmed to the STC that deliveries to Mauritius remain on a priority and that the product supply levels will remain stable. With regard to LPG, the supplier Geogas Trading SA sources LPG predominantly from the United States with additional supply coming from Argentina, Chile, Australia, the Caribbean, West Africa, the Mediterranean, and Europe, thereby limiting its exposure to the Middle East. The supplier has also indicated that it has dedicated its fleet of around 75 vessels to serve its long-term customers in order to ensure reliability of supply. Among the long-term customers includes Mauritius. Madam Speaker, the STC continues to monitor the national stock position of petroleum products on a daily basis and makes optimal use of available storage facilities, including the strategic reserves for mogas and gas oil. In addition, contingency measures have been put in place. The STC has contacted a number of alternative suppliers operating outside the Gulf region in order to secure possible spot cargoes should disruptions occur. Furthermore, the STC have the option to extend the present contract with OQ Trading Limited by a further 2 months. Madam Speaker, with the objective of securitization of supply chains for energy, even before the war broke out, I had personally discussed with the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, during my state visit in September 2025, to assist us in the procurement of petroleum products under a government-to-government arrangement between, that is, the Government of India and the Government of Mauritius. I reiterated my demand on my recent visit in India last February, and let me once again thank the Indian government for responding positively to our request at this critical juncture. The Government of India is making arrangements for us to procure our petroleum products directly through Indian Oil Corporation Limited. This will eliminate additional costs due to unnecessary intermediaries and middlemen, as had been done in the past in the procurement of our petroleum products, unlike what I said, these dubious and corrupt practices of the previous government. It should be noted, Madam Speaker, that Mangalore Refinery and Petroleums Limited, Chemical Limited, with which we had this arrangement at the before 2006, I think, they were contacted. They declined to supply petroleum products to Mauritius because they said they have been burnt in view of the unilateral and irresponsible action of the previous government in 2014. You realize, Madam Speaker, if that contract had not been disrupted, yes, if that contract had not been completely
Take time.
crazy,
Yeah.
if we had the
I'll give you
tanker
time.
that we had at the time, we would not be in that situation today. As an additional contingency measure for LPG supply, the Strait Trading Corporation is also exploring the possibility of procuring spot cargoes, as I said, from other suppliers, which operate storage facilities in South Africa. With regard to fuel oil, which is mainly used for electricity generation by the CEB, as well as certain local industries, the STC has extended its current contract for the supply of fuel oil up to 31st of May of this year, in order to ensure continuity of supply. As at 13th of March, the stock position was as follows. About 17,119 metric tons of fuel oil used by the CEB, representing approximately 26 days of supply that is expected to last until around the 8th of April of this year. Around 17,190 metric tons of another type of fuel oil used by the CEB, representing approximately 37 days of supply and expected to last around 19th of April 2026. About 2,260 metric tons of fuel oil used for inland trade, industry and industrial purposes, representing 22 days of supply and expected to last until the 4th of April of this year. The next fuel oil consignment was scheduled for loading at Fujairah in the United Arab Emirates. However, due to temporary suspensions of operations at that port, there have been delays in the loading program. I'm informed, Madam Speaker, that the STC has made necessary arrangements for a new tanker from its current supplier to load a shipment from Singapore. The said tanker is expected to reach Mauritius by early April 2026. As for food security, Madam Speaker, the government is equally conscious that global tensions affect not only petroleum products, but also the prices of food commodities and other essential goods. Since the start of the conflict, international prices of commodities have increased by approximately from 1 to 3%. On top of that, major currencies, such as the US dollars and the euro, have been appreciating, thereby increasing the import costs for Mauritius. In order to protect consumers from excessive price increases, government maintains a comprehensive price control framework. At present, 30 commodities are regulated under the maximum markup regime, including products such as milk powder, breakfast cereals, infant foods, edible oil, basmati rice, frozen vegetables, and margarine. In addition, 13 essential commodities, including scheduled bread, LPG, mogas, gas oil, and flour, are regulated under the maximum fixed price regime. Retail prices of medicines are also controlled under a regressive maximum markup system, whereby medicine with higher import costs are subject to lower margins. The Ministry of Health has taken several measures to ensure that there is no disruption in medical supplies. The Ministry currently has a buffer stock of medicine for at least 6 months. A committee of needs has been set up at the level of the Ministry to assess island-wide stock situation, including that of Rodrigues and other outer islands. Government has also reinforced consumer protection measures through the Price Stabilization Fund of 10 billion rupees, which provides targeted subsidies on essential commodities such as milk powder, edible oil, infant milk powder, baby diapers, processed cheese, adult diapers, canned fish, and other certain essential medicines. Madam Speaker, in the light of the ongoing tensions in the Middle East, government remains fully committed to safeguard the resilience of the Mauritian economy and protect the welfare of our population. It is clear, Madam Speaker, if the current situation continues, it will impact on our budgetary estimates and outlook, thus further reducing our room for maneuver. Close monitoring of global developments is being undertaken, particularly with regard to energy prices, supply chains, and the potential impact on inflation and economic activity. Government will maintain prudent fiscal policies and ensure that targeted measures are available to support vulnerable households and key economic sectors where necessary. Through coordinated action, government stands ready to respond swiftly and adjust its policy stance so as to preserve macroeconomic stability, sustain growth, and protect the purchasing power of all Mauritians. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Your first supplementary question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I hope you'll give me enough time to put
Yes,
all my
of course.
supplementary questions, because this is a very important subject. I'll refer to what the Honourable Prime Minister just said when he ended his reply. He said that if war continues, and it will continue, it will impact on our economy. Can I ask him whether he shares the views of the Deputy Prime Minister that the country needs a full-time Minister of Finance to tackle this situation?
I think what the country needs at the moment is somebody with a firm hand who is not going to shy away from taking tough decisions. That is what the country needs.
You've had your reply. Next question.
Yes, the Honourable Prime Minister made reference to a high-level committee. Can I ask the Honourable Prime Minister who is chairing that committee and the frequency that committee is meeting, please?
The committee is being chaired by the Financial Secretary, and he calls in additional persons if he needs to, but he's chairing it. As to the frequency, depending on how things are moving. I think I explained. They met a few times, and they're meeting even today.
Okay. Free.
That the Honourable Prime Minister thinks that for such, let's say, war happening there in the Middle East and affecting us here, that committee should have been chaired by the Prime Minister himself or a high-ranking minister in government, Madam Speaker. Now, can I?
Was that a question?
No,
Do you want to
my
reply?
question.
Give him time to give a reply. You think that?
What is important is that committee is being chaired and we're getting all the information that we need.
Yes, all right. It's not his. He doesn't agree with you.
Can I, because he talked about repatriation of Mauritian nationals working in those Gulf countries, can we have an indication how many Mauritian nationals were working the Gulf countries before the start of the war? And do we have additional requests for repatriation? And if this is the case, what measures have and will be taken for the safe repatriation of those Mauritian nationals?
Okay, two questions in one.
I think I had answered
New
the question.
requests and
Yes.
what's going to be done.
Yeah, with regard, there are about 121 Mauritians in the countries of Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia. Also, we have some of them were returned earlier through the action of our ambassador in Saudi Arabia. Others have come later on. First batch came on the 3rd of March by Nairobi. There were 39 Mauritian nationals. Now, if you want the total number, I think I mentioned it somewhere. It was around, I can't remember the exact number, but it was around 200 something.
I'm sorry, we're talking of those who were settled there.
No, my
Working.
question is those working in those Gulf
Working,
countries.
working. Was that the answer? I'm sorry, Prime Minister? You were talking of those who were working there, not...
Yes, I was mentioning about people who are working. Settled, we have no,
Just to
we
make
don't-
sure.
Yeah.
Just to make sure. Okay, next question.
My second question was whether there has been additional requests for repatriation for those working in those Gulf countries.
We had set up, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs had set up a hotline, as I explained. Mauritians have been contacting them. 228 Mauritian nationals have contacted the Ministry of Foreign Affairs through this hotline, and we have given them assistance for them to return back.
Okay. Now, that's clear.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Can I ask the Honourable Prime Minister whether government has looked into the impact of this conflict on the Chagos deal and the role of Diego Garcia in this war, as the issue of Chagos has been put aside by the UK government? Has government looked into that?
The Diego Garcia base does not come into play here at all. As far as I know, the British government has not allowed the use of Diego Garcia up to now. Maybe they will change their mind.
May I just remind everyone that supplementary questions must relate to the original question. That will apply to everybody.
In his
Yes.
reply, the Honourable Prime Minister
He mentioned,
indicated to the House that there is possibility, if the war goes on, that inflation rate might reach around 6%. If this is the case, will government consider reintroducing the CSG allowances in full to those families who are benefiting with a view to alleviate the rise in cost of living?
This would be a step backwards, Madam Speaker. You explained during the
I can't hear the Prime Minister. Yes,
You
Prime Minister.
explained during the debates why this was a catastrophe. We're not going to go back to that.
Okay, next question.
If this is the case,
Because
may
I'm
I
giving you-
ask the
I'm
Honourable
giving
Prime
you
Minister?
additional time,
Yeah,
okay?
may I?
Yes,
Please
please.
interrupt me, Madam Speaker. I'm putting my question. Can I?
Please. I did not mean to stop you. I was
Can
just...
I ask the Honourable Prime Minister, the reply is given, whether government then can consider introducing a temporary inflation top-up for workers earning less than 20,000 rupees during the duration of the conflict?
Obviously, don't realize that we are being watched by Moody's, that we have to look very carefully. We have inherited, as you know, a terrible situation as far as the economy was concerned. We are trying to put that country in shape. Some people don't understand, some people understand. We're not going to go back to that. We cannot.
No.
With regard to Mogas and gas oil, I understand from what the Prime Minister stated that we are expecting a shipment on the 18th of March. That's the word he used, expecting. Is it the case? And if this is the case, can we know what contingency plans are in place should shipments of white oil for the STC and black oil for the CB be delayed, Madam Speaker?
As the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, I'm sure knows, we are in a region where there is war. So we cannot predict exactly what will happen. But we're taking contingency plans. I thought I explained. We're looking at all the sources where we can to make sure that we're not short of anything.
From his reply, we understand discussions are ongoing with the Indian authorities for alternative petroleum supply, and we are very grateful to India. Can the Honorable Prime Minister inform the House of the volume and duration of supply tentatively secured, Madam Speaker?
No, we haven't concluded the agreement yet. So we're not looking at I cannot tell you how much what's the volume, but what I can say, it will be a guaranteed supply.
Thank you. Yes?
Okay. Can I then ask the Honorable Prime Minister whether the procurement can be settled in Indian rupees to reduce USD exposure? And can the House also be provided, Honorable Prime Minister, with information on the operational timeline for this alternative procurement?
I'm glad the Leader of the Opposition has just reminded me. In fact, we have arranged for the payment to be done in Mauritian rupees, so that we will not be subject to the fluctuation of the dollar on that.
Yeah, thank you. With regard to the price of mogas and gas oil, Madam Speaker, will government consider reviewing the tax mechanism, including excise duties and VAT? And is government willing to consider some form of support to the transport sector, that is taxis and buses, Madam Speaker?
I'll explain, Madam Speaker.
Very tall order.
It's a very tall order. We have inherited of a very difficult situation. Now we have the war, plus the 10 billion rupees that we're not getting from Chagos. This puts additional pressure on us.
So if this is the case, is government then, Madam Speaker, considering an increase in transport fares in case the situation worsen?
Not for the moment. We're monitoring this situation. As I said, we have made provisions that we don't get disruptions. As for the prices, we cannot, because the dollar is going up, inflation rate is going up, the cost of insurance for the ships are going up, the cost of transport are going up, so we'll have to take all this into account. But at the moment, we're not thinking of that.
Okay.
With regard to energy security, Madam Speaker, we know that 80% of our electricity in the country is being generated from imported fossil fuel. Will the Honorable Prime Minister inform the House what measures are being taken if coal or oil shipments from the Middle East or other ports are disrupted by conflict-related routing or shipping delays? Can we have a reply from the Prime Minister?
I did address this. The next fuel oil, we're talking about fuel oil consignment, is scheduled to be loaded from United Arab Emirates. There has been a temporary suspension of operations at that port, so there are slight delays, but I'm told that the loading program will start soon.
Okay.
And is, in case of energy and electricity, is government also considering an increase in electricity tariff if the situation worsens?
Let's keep fingers crossed.
I have my questions, Madam Speaker.
Of course.
I think I should
And I like listening to you.
I think I should add, I did say, but I should add again, that we're also looking at a shipment for electricity from Singapore. This has already been done by the STC. As for prices, already we're under a lot of pressure from Moody's on different prices. We have to reduce the debt burden of this country. I have some very good news later on. I will make a statement, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
No, I know, Madam Speaker. Let me correct something. I refer to what the Honourable Prime Minister said earlier. The contract between Mangalore Refinery and STC was never cancelled. It expired on the 31st of July 2019.
That is not a question.
Now, with regard to food security,
That was not a question. That was a statement. Please.
does the Prime
Question.
does the Honourable Prime Minister recognize that it would be most appropriate in view of the current rise in commodity prices to provide subsidies, he mentioned that in his reply, to a larger selection of essential products and increase the amount of subsidy altogether?
Madam Speaker, we're not going to do what the previous government did. We're not going to print money. We have to use what we can do. We have difficult situation. We have to cope with the situation.
I'll give you 1 more minute.
2 more minutes. I have more
Allez,
questions.
2 more
Madam
minutes.
Speaker. The Honourable Prime Minister said that for
Honourable members.
fuel we will be paying India in Indian rupees. Can I ask the Honourable Mauritian, can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House whether import of foodstuff at a more affordable price from India, that is in Indian currency, for example, has been considered?
We are looking at all the options, Madam Speaker. This also is an option that we'll have to look at. But we are hoping that we learn from all this and we become self-sufficient ourselves.
Okay, I've got 1 minute. Your friend is asking for a question. You don't want to let him put a question?
Can the Honourable Prime Minister state to the House whether government has any plan to boost up food crop locally in view of the risk to food availability and food security arising from the conflict?
Okay.
Whether we have plans for that?
Because of the conflict, the Honourable Minister for Agro-Industry had mentioned in the past what we're doing to boost our to try to become self-sufficient. It's not going to happen overnight, but we are taking measures.
Okay, let us stop here for PNQ, please, because in any case, may I? I'm on my feet. In any case, I think, Prime Minister, we can agree that during PMQT, you will be replying to the other questions on the same issue, so I will give you more time to put questions. You can put your question. No, but I will give you, because it is, I mean, c'est un package, ça, toutes ces questions-là. Ça se ressemble beaucoup, okay? Let me do the, please. I've done my best, Leader of the Opposition. Let us know afterwards. She tried. She tried. Yes, Prime Minister.
So, question B1, B2, and B21, Madam Speaker. Because they relate to the same matter.
Voilà donc pour cette séance de la Private Notice Question. Donc le leader de l'opposition qui questionne Premier ministre la guerre au Moyen-Orient. Donc les finulés connaissent si le gouvernement fait une évaluation de l'impact de ce conflit-là sur l'économie mauricienne, notamment dans le secteur de l'énergie, la sécurité alimentaire et la stabilité sociale. Alors nous revenons là dans un petit moment, mais d'abord David Boudna, au niveau de l'ambiance, nous remarquons comme prévu Paul Béranger, pas présent dans le Parlement. En revanche, nous remarquons la présence de Rajesh Bhagwan et d'autres membres du MMM.
Oui, donc avec une prise de vue qui nous trouvait, nous pas une vue à l'arrière. Donc là, ce qui nous trouvait déjà, c'est donc le ministre Rajesh Bhagwan bien présent. D'après donc hier, le DPM dit ça prend ses responsabilités. Alors là, dans le cas actuel, nous trouvons donc que donc Rajesh Bhagwan bien présent avec une prise de vue plutôt nous pourrions aussi le mais comme si la valeur du jour nous trouvait, c'est seulement Paul Béranger qui est absent.
Oui, et PNQ, donc qui axée la guerre au Moyen-Orient, qui déroule dans une ambiance plutôt bon enfant, nous capables de dire. Et donc, nous rappelle Joël Jonga qui t'y envie l'impact qui ça la guerre là au Moyen-Orient pour l'eau Maurice. Navin Ramgoulam répond d'abord qu'en raison de l'importance de la situation, sa réponse plus longue. Effectivement, c'était une réponse très longue. L'idée qui, depuis l'éclatement de la guerre au Moyen-Orient, les fins monitor la situation personnellement. Les dire qui finit na ban mesures d'urgence qui fin prend, notamment pour rapatriement de ban mauriciens qui bloqués dans ban différents pays. Les dire ça c'était une des ban priorités et les dire qui les fin intervenir personnellement auprès des Emirates. Les dire qui fin une hotline, c'est une hotline qui te met sur pied pour ban mauriciens qui fin bloqués. 121 mauriciens depuis qui étaient bloqués dans Koweït, Bahreïn et Qatar entre autres fin rentrent au pays. Et donc, les dire que l'assistance de l'Inde est également sollicitée. Premier ministre dit aussi qu'avec la guerre au Moyen-Orient, le taux de l'inflation est pris pour augmenter et finalement, ben, différentes instances qui paient travail, l'eau, l'impact économique de la guerre au Moyen-Orient. Il finit de ben chiffre que vous pourrez venir là dans un petit moment, David, GDP et les dire qui est revenu pour diminuer. Il finit de un chiffre aussi prévision pour déficit budgétaire. Qu'il y a un high-level committee qui fait mettre des bouts pour régler la situation économique et qui donne l'assistance à certains secteurs, donc PME entre autres. Et puis l'idée aussi que malgré la situation à l'international, donc prix l'essence et diesel pas fin augmenté. Il donne un chiffre concernant le stock qui est disponible pour l'essence, diesel, l'huile lourde et gaz. Le gaz qui dépend à 23 jours de stock qui est disponible. Il dit qu'il y a une cargaison qui est attendue aujourd'hui. Et l'IPJ aussi, le Premier ministre Nabil Ramoulam dit aussi qu'il la STC en contact avec les autres sources d'approvisionnement autres que l'huile lourde, autres que le Moyen-Orient pour l'approvisionnement en huile lourde. Le Premier ministre aussi fait un rappel qu'il y a un accord avec le Premier ministre indien pour approvisionnement en produits pétroliers, un G2G government, donc un accord G2G qu'il est évoqué. Concernant sécurité alimentaire, Nabil Ramoulam dit qu'encore une fois, malgré qu'il prix peut augmenter à l'international, il y a un contrôle des prix qui peut faire et qu'il y a un contrôle de plusieurs produits. L'IPJ qui peut assurer aussi qu'il peut y avoir pénurie de médicaments. Nabil Ramoulam dit donc avec la situation internationale qui peut continuer si la situation internationale continue dans ce sens-là, ça peut impacter l'eau. Et pour bien faire un réajustement et protège une famille vulnérable. Alors, l'eau de David Boudna, un réajustement pour protéger une famille vulnérable.
Alors donc quelques petits points quand même. Donc alors dans ce réponse liminaire. Bonne crainte que le Premier ministre finisse dire, c'est que justement, nous importations, le prix à l'importation d'un carburant, éventuellement pour monter, il était $60 avant la guerre, il arrive $100 et plus, et ici même arrive un pic de $115. Alors il y a une bonne crainte ici donc sur le coût des carburants, l'augmentation fret, l'investissement de l'étranger aussi, il y a une bonne crainte, et aussi pour nos croissance économique qui dit prévoit 3.4 et il y a un risque qui est l'IBES 3.2, l'IVIN 3.2. Ban crainte aussi le ban arrivée touristique et peut craindre le Premier ministre dire qui est une baisse de ban arrivée touristique. L'inflation, là aussi, est une inquiétude. Le Premier ministre dit qu'il y a un ban risque qui est arrivé jusqu'à 6%. Et donc, il a aussi ajouté à cela le manque à gagner de chaque deal, les 10 milliards qui étaient prévus. Là, les choses on pause, paraît dans l'expectative, et ça peut faire un déficit budgétaire augmenté par 2%. Un autre point important, donc, pour une mesure qui peut prendre pour guetter sa situation difficile là, et d'un high-level committee qui met discute avec le secteur privé, pour guetter secteur, petites et moyennes entreprises, pour guetter nous l'importation de l'énergie, la sécurité alimentaire et bien sûr le secteur tourisme. Là, tout ça voler nous stock et approvisionnement de produits pétroliers. L'essence, il y a donc une cargaison qui peut rentrer et il peut durer jusqu'à 25 mars. Diesel, il y a 23 jours encore. Et stock, il peut durer jusqu'à 2 avril. Jet One, l'essence avion, il y a 21 jours stock, il peut durer jusqu'à 4 avril. Et pour gaz, il y a arrivé encore qui peut venir aujourd'hui. Et aussi l'autre le 30 mars. Et là, il y a 23 jours de stock pour les gaz.
Alors,
et aussi STC, évidemment, qui peut rebanner les sources alternatives. Et lui, l'autre, pour CEB, nous avons 37 jours de stock jusqu'au 19 avril.
Merci pour ces précisions, David Boudna. Alors, finina une question supplémentaire du leader de l'opposition, Joe Lejonga, notamment une première question. L'idée est-ce qu'il pas besoin un full-time, un full-fledged minister, donc pour gérer la situation. D'autres questions portent notamment le rapatriement de ban Mauricien, CSG allowance. Il demandait aussi est-ce qu'il peut considérer un top-up allowance et il demandé également est-ce qu'il y a une augmentation prix transport et prix courant et aussi si il y a une augmentation point de subside.
Alors tout de suite là, l'augmentation, la question donc du leader de l'opposition, le prix courant et prix transport, taxi, transport bus, là le Premier ministre disait comme ça. Pas payer ça là, plié pour toi payer approvisionnement, ça je peux guetter après, mais là c'est l'approvisionnement gros morceau qui je peux concentrer. Première question qui t'y posée donc est-ce qu'il y a un full-fledged ministre des Finances, Premier ministre disait comme ça, besoin un firm hand, la main solide et pas payer pour prendre décision. Ensuite, fin de demande, est-ce qu'il peut y avoir un comité et là il y a un comité qui peut siéger. Et de l'opposition demandait est-ce qu'il fait notre secrétaire partisan et Premier ministre même qui tue ça. Premier ministre disait non. Tout ban mesure peut faire comité là peut siéger aujourd'hui même pour guetter tout ban situation. Et l'impact donc de l'opposition fait demande est-ce qu'il Diego Garcia peut servir donc pour de ça la guerre là. Premier ministre disait comme ça, qui d'un premier temps nous connaît, qui Premier ministre Kesterhammer, il dit il n'est pas poulet sur un avion décollé de là pour un avion agressif, offensif, mais il n'est pas connu après. Ensuite, si la guerre continue à aller, et question, est-ce qu'il pourrait introduire CSG allowance? Question de Joe Lejonga. Premier ministre disait comme ça, non, il est pas catastrophique. Pas question pour retourner en arrière. Prochaine question, les filles demandent est-ce qu'il peut top up, ben, du monde qui gagne moins que 20 000 roupies, le jeu de salaire. Là-dessus, Premier ministre dit situation bien difficile, nous pouvons surveiller de près par Moody et il n'est pas capable d'aller en arrière encore une fois. Voilà.
Autant donc David Boudna pour le compte-rendu complet de cette séance de la PNQ, un peu plus bonheur. Premier ministre fin rendre hommage à Surya Moti Sanassi et Takodat Padarot, deux anciens membres de l'Assemblée nationale qui fin décédés.
Oui, donc hommage à Moti Sanassi qui fin décédé le 22 janvier. Il fin rappel qu'il était candidat post-travail PMSD en 1991, il n'est pas élu, mais en 1995, sous l'alliance post-travail MMM, il était élu et en 1996, Moti Sanassi était député chairman of committees et il est fini ensuite ministre de l'Industrie et du Commerce, ministre du Logement aussi, et il était élevé au rang Grand Officer Star and Key of the Indian Ocean.
Oui, alors hommage rendu également à Takodat Padarot. Alors sinon tout à l'heure ou à l'heure même, en ce moment même, la séance de la PMQT fin démarrer et parmi les dossiers qui peut retenir l'attention lors de cette séance de la PMQT, l'impact économique du retard dans la ratification du traité Lochagos, la lutte contre la drogue ainsi que la situation économique du pays et c'est le député MMM donc Ram Etoiria qui pose la question. Et puis il y a deux projets de loi qui également à l'ordre du jour. L'Optical Council Amendment Bill qui peut présenter en première lecture. Ensuite, place à un débat, le Law Reform Commission. Autant donc pour cette séance de la PNQ qui nous fait suivre avec vous également David Boudna. Merci beaucoup, c'était un plaisir.
C'est partagé.
Merci à toute l'équipe technique, Abhishek Sitowal pour le son et également pour les images, l'équipe d'Antish Bawan. Vous êtes capable de suivre un large extrait de la séance de la PNQ avec également l'ambiance sur place ce matin dans nos bulletins de 13h qui vous présentés par Douchila Mansingh. À très bientôt.